So what is a good basic loadout for your inventory in Dying Light the Beast? Well, let's go over some principles. So just like with most games, you want a good balance of weapons, ammo, utility, consumables, and so on. And in this game, I would recommend always having at least one really good melee weapon. You can have two or three even, but at least one really good melee weapon with mods on it. So if we actually look at this thing, let's actually go to my inventory here. Now, if we look at my melee weapon, I have mods in every category. I have a voltage mod, a freezing shaft, and then damage increase on the grip, and then a charm that improves uncommon craft loot. So we have a little bit of everything, but mostly this is a pretty reliable weapon. It's a legendary longsword, the Rust. It's a pretty good sword. It's very reliable, really easy to hit enemies in the head with. Its stamina consumption is pretty moderate, so it's not too difficult to wield. So you want some kind of at least 1 to 3 melee weapons, and depending on how far you are in the game, you might want more or less. At the stage I'm at now, I would rather have fewer melee weapons, like maybe 1 to 2. And you can also have like a short-ranged quick melee that costs low stamina, and then a long-ranged melee they can use to attack enemies from afar with, especially when you're on top of objects and, you know, vehicles and stuff like that, like terrain. The next weapon I recommend you have is either a bow or a crossbow. The big advantage of the bow and the crossbow is that you can craft the ammo on the fly, so if you're ever low on ammo, as long as you have the resources, you can craft it. Similarly, the saw blade launcher, you can also craft the ammo anywhere at any time. So this is also a really good weapon for boss fights specifically. Against generic zombies, I wouldn't use it. Against generic enemies, I wouldn't use it. Only boss enemies you want to deal big burst damage to. So this is specifically a boss weapon. Another way to look at the bow and the crossbow is that it's a quiet poke weapon that's really good at attacking enemy soldiers. So if you want to take out enemies with guns silently, the crossbow and the bow are great options for that. And they also allow you to maintain stealth while engaging at range. So 2 huge advantages from using the bow and the crossbow. So melee weapon, bow or crossbow, some kind of big burst damage weapon. Now it doesn't have to be the saw blade launcher. You can use the revolver, you can use the marksman rifle, you can use whatever, you know, the grenade launcher, whatever power weapon you feel like is good, that you like to use, that you enjoy, that you can run consistently. And then also you want some kind of like panic button. So like a panic weapon. So like an SMG, an assault rifle, a shotgun. So this is for when you're overwhelmed, you need to rapidly start shooting things in the head or just deal some damage quickly. So generally I will have that on my 4th slot so that as I rotate through my weapons, I'm primarily using my melee as much as humanly possible. Aside from distant encounters in which I'll go for a quick poke shot. So you don't have your like crossbow out in this case. You kind of switch to it, go for a quick headshot, then switch back to other things. At least that's how I use it. Right now I'm running my SMG because I have a lot of ammo for it. And even then I'm still going to try to not use it as much as possible and only use it when I absolutely need it. So basically you have your melee weapon, your silent weapon, your boss killer, and then your panic weapon. So that's just for weapons. For gadgets, it's really up to you as to what you want to run, but generally I have burst damage grenades, damage over time grenades, or it can be, you know, throwing knives. There's damage over time throwing knives that set things on fire and stuff like that. And then I have the grappling hook and then the UV flashlight. The grappling hook allows you to yank enemies that have guns or enemy zombies that shoot you at range. So pull them towards you, deal a little bit of damage, and then you can melee them. So it allows you to convert stamina into a ranged attack that disables a ranged threat. So the grappling hook has huge utility against those enemies that are on high ground or against enemies that are just like, you know, somewhere distant that you want to grab. It's also great in melee duels. You can grab an enemy human, pull them to the ground, and then you just win that fight immediately. You just hit them in the head a few times with your sword or melee weapon and they're gone. The big issue with melee fighting humans is that they dodge almost every first swing you take on them unless they're attacking, and when they're attacking they usually end up hitting you, interrupting you. So this just wins melee fights with humans, and it also can be used to pull enemies. And then of course the UV flashlight is always useful against zombies, except for like high level zombies that are immune, but most zombies it will start burning them or staggering them. and it allows you to crowd control them at will, and it's very useful. It has infinite uses. It just has a cooldown and a charge mechanic, so as long as you don't burn it out completely, it's always good. The other thing too with Molotovs is if you throw a Molotov and set things on fire, you can generally run away from those things and they'll burn out and die. Now against bosses, this actually can do good damage if the boss stays in the fire effect. The Molotov has initial damage, but then it has big damage over time. Compared to the hand grenades, which just have big burst damage up front, the Molotov can deal really good damage for its crafting component cost, whereas with hand grenades, it might be a little bit harder to craft these. But if you're constantly looting, you should be able to maintain a good supply of both. But the rest of the items, it's really up to you. There's quite a lot of utility items to use. Here's just like a small sample of those. So for like gadgets, throwing knife, a lot of people like throwing knives. I don't really use them personally, but now that I have more resources, I could for sure. There are things like exploding knife and shock knife, so there's definitely throwing knives that do like, you know, huge damage that can be used similar to grenades. So if you prefer throwing knives, that's totally legit. There's also mines. Mines can be huge value because you can kind of plant traps for enemy bosses and stuff and then lead them to the mine so you don't have to actually hit them directly. There's pipe bombs, there's also flashbangs, so stuns nearby enemies. So there's a lot of utility in gadgets, but generally you're going to want damage. Damage is usually going to win. There are very few situations where I don't want damage because, like, why flashbang an enemy when you can just kill them, right? So I would rather kill them. So this is my kind of loadout. You know, damage over time, cheap spam grenade, big burst grenade that's good against bosses. Both are good against bosses. Long range tool to pull enemies and to win melee fights against enemy humans like almost instantly. That's the thing. Like you can still win these fights and not take damage, but it's much easier because it's just like you immediately shut them down and then they're just on the ground. And then the UV flashlight for general zombie fighting. I think this is probably always going to be good. Unless, like, in super late game, it doesn't do anything, but it seems to always be good. All right, and then for consumables. So consumables, if we just keep it simple, this is all you really need is your best quality bandage, because the higher quality the bandage, the faster it applies. So that means it doesn't get interrupted as often because it activates quicker. And then you want military med kits because these remove status effects and heal you to full, basically. And bandages generally will also heal you to full. So you usually don't have to worry about healing, but med kits, they're only really good for if you need a panic heal and to remove conditions. So I usually don't even use them. So if you want, you can even unbind them and just have them to have them. So like if you're in a situation where you need them, you can slap them on. But I also like dumb food items so that if I'm doing like a quest, I can just like chip heal and I don't have to waste like an actual consumable. So I'll just have like a bunch of junk and I'll have it temporarily equipped, use it, and then I'll unequip it. So usually this is my loadout for consumables. Now there are other consumables. Like obviously you could run endurance boosters, and if you wanted to run like heal over time, like regen booster or the damage increase booster, those are options as well. Those are totally valid and legit. One thing to consider though is if you have too many consumables out at all times, you need to get your heal and you're under pressure. You can always open your inventory, but if you're playing co-op or something, I don't think you can just open your inventory. It doesn't pause the game. So like you can open it, but it's going to be in real time, so you can still get hit. So you still want, you know, nice quick heals. And in multiplayer, I would recommend finding safe spots to equip stuff like this and use boosters. Unless the booster is like going to immediately help you. Now, if you're running like a melee build, the melee damage boosters, that makes sense. So for example, I can't craft one right now, but here's one. You know, 10% melee damage for 300 seconds is pretty good. So, and this can be improved even further as well. And then finally, we have ammo. So ammo is just kind of like a thing that's on your inventory, like in your inventory. So generally, you're going to want to carry a good amount of ammo for all of your weapons. So let's actually like go outside really quick. Like check our ammo. So ignore where I'm at if this is... I don't think showing a cave base is a spoiler. I don't think any of these are technically spoilers. I'm not showing anything. It's very discreet, we'll say. But alright, so let's check out our weapons. Let's go outside. Okay, so for my crossbow, I like to carry like at least like 20 to 30 bolts. And I usually only use this if I'm like in stealth and I need a quick hit, or if I want to like quick switch Like, let's say there's, like, some threat coming, I want to quick switch to it and just, like, shoot a dude in the head. Same thing with, like, the saw blade. For the boss weapons, I would say, like, 10 to 20 ammo if you can keep that and maintain it. Don't use them on dumb enemies, it's just a waste. It's not worth it. And then for your spam gun, use it in, like, you know, bad situations only, where, let's say there's, like, 3 enemy humans pushing you and you're, like, a quarter health or something, you need to quickly just mow them down. So, like, switch to your assault rifle, your shotgun, flamethrower, or your SMG. Those are all, like, really good quick response tools for that situation. And then for other weapons, like, let's say we have, like, a nice poke gun, like a revolver or a DMR or something, the marksman rifle. I would say have at least, like, 10 to 20 rounds with you and only use it when you need to shoot something distant. In the case of the revolver, though, it's kind of like a generalist tool. It has good base damage, and it kind of doubles as, like, a sniper tool if you're accurate with iron sights. And also, it is good boss damage if you can line up the crosshairs on the boss's head and shoot its face. So you get pretty good burst damage with headshots. But I would generally save this for, like, mini-boss enemies and boss enemies. I wouldn't use this on generic enemies. If you want to use your crossbow on generics, you can do that. Just make sure you line up the shot. Actually missed just barely there. So I'll try to line it up a little bit better than I am doing now, but you get the idea. And you also can recover your bolts, so watch out for that. Sometimes they get stuck in the terrain, though. The dude near me. Generally, I don't want to use my crossbow. Like, I don't want to waste it. I missed the headshot there. The head hit, but I'd rather just use, like, flashlight and melee if I'm fighting zombies, because it's just really effective, even against the fast zombies. Now, against, like, the zombies at night, the dangerous ones, then, yeah, you might want to change it up a bit and use, like, consider using, like, a power weapon to one-tap them if you can hit them in the head. But also, there's always grenades, flamethrowers, Molotovs, those all, like, help a lot, so. Alright, so that is it for my basic loadout guide. This is for the brutal difficulty. That's all I've been playing on so far. I've been having a pretty good time. If you have any other tips for loadouts, for any difficulty, or especially brutal, definitely drop a comment, and I'll see you guys next one. Peace.